Welcome to another episode of Prepper Talk Radio, radio for the ready-minded, where we focus on God, family, and country. We've got an exciting episode today, actually. We're going to be talking about how our children, how we can prepare our families and our children against what's really happening in schools and around the world, really, about how things are changing, and that the idea of democracy and the idea of freedom and liberty is being opposed in huge ways, in tyrannies and communism and Marxism and all these other things that are coming into our communities, coming at our families. And so we've got a really huge, amazing opportunity today to interview one of our good friends. We've had her on the show before, Carrie. And so we're going to bring her on in a minute. We're going to get an update about what she's doing and some of the great work that she's involved with, and how we as preppers and as parents can help our children and help our communities and fight against some of this tyranny that's happening and coming at us, and it's going to come at us pretty hard. So we need to stand up strong and be strong for that. In the meantime, though, I want to remind everybody to go to our preppertalkradio.com and our show, our website, where you can sign up for free resources, check out the free resources, get on our email list so that we can start communicating. If everything is going the way it is, we need alternate ways to communicate with everybody, and email is one of those great ways that we can continue to do that. Also, you'll see it growing across the screen here. If you're listening, if you're watching on YouTube, going across the screen, we have our affiliation with ITM Trading. ITM Trading is a gold and silver affiliate link that we have. You know, with the economy going, with the stock market looking the way it is, with everything that's happening, it's really a fantastic way for you to add gold and silver to your portfolio to give you the opportunity to hedge against inflation. Another thing is, I've had actually several people come to me about old 401ks, old IRAs. What should they do with it? How should they invest with it? And I've said, hey, listen, I don't know if you're interested, but there's this great company that does gold investing with those 401ks and IRAs. You might be interested. And I've had a few people take me up on it, and we've had a few of them use that. So go to learn.itmtrading.com/preppertalkradio or call 1-866-257-0481 to get a free consultation to see if it's actually something that would be good for you. They'll give you all the great education that you need. But let's now jump into it. Carrie, welcome to the show. Thanks for coming back. You've got a lot of updates to give us. So
I do, yes.
Tell us what's going on. Tell us what's new in your world.
Sure. Well, first off, thanks for having me. I always appreciate the opportunity to spread the word about these things that I wish weren't happening. And I really came on to talk about liberated ethnic studies because it's not what people think it is. You know, when you hear the term ethnic studies, what do you think as parents? What do you guys think?
You know, you think learn about the different ethnicities that are out there.
Mm-hmm.
You know, hey,
the different social structures, the different, societies that are out there, the different cultures. And that's not what any of it is from the sounds of it.
Right. I mean, for elementary school, you usually think about trying different foods, maybe wearing different countries' costumes to school, right? That's generally what we think of. Liberated ethnic studies, though, is so concerning because it's not even learning necessarily real history. And what happened for me is on my podcast, which is called Be Not Afraid, somebody had felt that I was relatively reasonable. And so they were listening to some of the things I had to say. And then they attended an event in Tennessee for teachers, for educators, on ethnic studies. And they were surprised to find that this book right here is, it's kind of cutting out. Oh, it's my green screen. That this book was created right here in Utah.
Wow.
Of all places, this came to Utah. And so there's a big issue.
Tell us what the name of it is.
It's called Voices. Sorry, my green screen is being awesome. It's called Voices, an Ethnic Studies Survey. And the reason that that's important, this book is for 11th and 12th graders. The reason that survey is important is because on every couple of pages, they ask the kids after they have read their approved sources, and these approved sources are people like Robin DiAngelo, Ibram X. Kendi, people who have said that the only solution to past racism is current racism. So those are the people that are advising the kids in these books.
Isn't Ibram the guy that said that racism is racism, and he couldn't even define racism? Like he
Right.
defined racism in a loop. And it was
I
like,
can define it in their version. It's called a grift. It's so, does racism exist? Absolutely. But in my experience, the people who push this are some of the most racist people out there. And the idea that your kids, oh, go ahead.
So there's people who are listening. They don't see you,
Yeah.
Carrie, so they don't
okay.
know. They don't know the irony
Sure.
of where you're coming from.
Right.
So
It
they
is-
don't, tell us a little bit about your ethnicity, so that we know how
Absolutely.
powerful this is coming from you.
Sure. I'm biracial. I am German, Irish, and Haitian. And Haitian as in from Haiti. So a lot of people would just call me a Black woman.
Mm-hmm.
And I have no problem with teaching real history. I literally go around the state performing Harriet Tubman's story. But the reason that I tell this story, and I tell it at Patriot camps, is because I think it's important that people hear a story of a person of faith, and also a person who was helped by all sorts of people and hindered by all sorts of people. So they need to hear the truth, and they also need to hear the truth in unity, especially your children.
Mm-hmm.
So I tell this story to kids from preschool, kindergarten, all the way up to adults. I performed it at the Capitol for a group.
Nice.
So so I didn't know, and I took a look, and I wanted to know where this came from, and it comes out of the California Model Policy, which is the first policy on ethnic studies. And ethnic studies started out with Black liberation theology. That's where it starts. So it's the Black Panthers. So do you want your kids to become the Black Panthers? And you go, well, how could my white children ever become the Black Panthers? So within the first chapter of the book, it talks about what is whiteness? Can you define whiteness? And then it gives you approved sources, and you need to be able to explain that whiteness, you need to, some of the keywords are internalized bias. So these are words that your 11th and 12th grader are supposed to be able to explain. Colonialism, that's a big one, and I'll explain that in a little bit. But colonialism is huge. And again, the approved sources are only the voices that agree with this. So throughout this book, it's a celebration of socialism and even communism.
Wow.
You've got dictators in the book. The one thing that it does say about Martin Luther King is, oh, he didn't go far enough.
Yeah, yes. that to me is so sad, because there's this narrative that's being pushed that there needs to be violence attached to a movement.
Yes.
And which is so ironic, because speaking and educating and teaching and communicating and debating back and forth has always solved the biggest problems in history that I've read.
Right.
And it's like, as soon as we abandon reason to chaos, we spiral out of control.
Well, and that's the whole point, is that people will say this is an anti-white ideology, but it's really a pro-chaos. The end game of ethnic studies, if you were to go, what's the point? Why are they doing this? Because there's no joy in the book. And that was one of the things that I've noticed. And when I've looked at it with other people, we've all noticed. It doesn't matter because what it starts off with is, do you understand race? Well, here's our version of what race is, and you don't get another version. And then within the first few pages, it talks about how God is an old idea, and maybe you should let go of that old idea and open your mind. So this is within the first couple of pages of the book. Then it
that's
shows
part of Marxism. That's part of Marxism and the Communist Manifesto. One of the big things that these guys want to do, and I don't know the names just off the top of my head as well as I ought to, but I've read and studied and watched a lot. And one of the big things that these guys, especially Marxism, what they want to do is they want to separate their kids and from their parents.
Yes.
And of course, if they can get their parents to, if the system that's being put in place can get their kids to believe that their parents are outdated and old-fashioned, and they don't have any clue as to what's the new, cool, the right way, so to speak, then that kind of disenfranchises the family ideal, it disenfranchises the God religion ideal, and it just kind of gets these kids into a place where like they're just in limbo, and that's right where the enemy wants them.
Well, and let me explain that a little bit further. You take away from ethnic studies, something that I learned over the holidays was that a lot of our books are being taken over. So Little Women, Anne of Green Gables, those books are now being reimagined. So that you don't take your own story and create your own story. You take a story that a beloved story, a classical literature story. And now in Anne of Green Gables, even though her falling in love with, I can't remember what his name is. I want to say Peter, but I'm not sure if that's the one. Is now she is questioning her sexuality. And this is for 8 to 12-year-olds in comic book form, available on Amazon. The same thing with Little Women. Jo is a lesbian for 8 to 12-year-olds on Amazon. So the attack on our kids is real. Emily Drabinski is the president of the ALA, American Library Association. And she said, this is another slide I'm happy to send you. She said, it is amazing that a queer Marxist could be the president of such an organization. My mother will be so proud. We're going to change the world.
Wow.
So that's the target for our very small children. So let's go back to ethnic studies. So that first chapter is race. And another thing that they show is the wheel of privilege, which I don't remember. I might have spoken about it last time I was on. But the wheel of privilege will, it's very colorful. And it will say that the most privileged people, remember, 11th and 12-year-olds, we're talking 16, 7, or not 11th and 12th, sorry, 11th and 12th grade. We're talking 16 to 18-year-olds, right?
Yeah.
Side note, there is a principal in Canada who killed himself from the struggle session. Okay? Wow. Now we're talking within this book, multiple times it says, make sure that a school counselor is on hand for the work that you're going to be doing. Now, I don't know if you just saw, but our governor just said he's going to bring in more mental health experts. I work with some of the mental health experts across internationally who are trying to fight this and are trying to show that mental health is no longer about helping. You are not safe when you take your child to a counselor unless you have vetted that counselor. Okay?
Well, it's not, and it's not safe. So here's the sad thing. It's not safe from the school.
No.
Because the school has first and foremost, they have no requirement to inform the parent.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
That's a problem. Also, it's not safe from from a religious standpoint.
No.
I've gone to some religious counselors in the past, and they have gone way outside of their purview, and so you got to be careful there.
Yes.
You have to vet, like in everything you do. Like if you're going to hire a contractor to work on your house, you got to vet them.
Right.
This is like 1,000% more important. If you're going to have someone help your kids, you've got to vet them.
Yes. And I've been telling people this. We have an app in Utah called Safe Utah. I'm guessing that there are more apps around the country like this. What happens is that your kid goes to school, and within the first week of school, they are told, mental health is a huge concern right now. We want you to always feel safe. So put this app on your phone. And last year, I had said, beware of this app. This is not a good thing. Beware of this app. And a close friend of mine said, I think you're pushing it. You're going to sound a little crazy, Carrie. Well, this year, the same friend called me and said, I'm pulling my daughter out of school. Stay away from Safe Utah.
Wow.
Because these kids are once you are part of the LGBTQIA mafia, which we'll see in the video a little later, Activism is your goal. Activism is part of it. You must apply the praxis. And so kids are grooming each other.
Mm.
And so they'll take the app, like an app where you can change how you look, put makeup on or whatever else, right?
Yeah.
And do you know what those apps, you can change your gender? You can cut your hair, whatever else. And so you've got 8th grade girls, and one says, "Oh, you would look so great with short hair. Oh my gosh, wouldn't they look great?" And then it's all, "Oh, I don't feel very comfortable in class. I feel really anxious. Maybe if you held my hand."
Interesting.
It's pretty
Slowly but surely, just kind of weaseling, worming, however you want to say it, their way in. Speaking of apps, there was this transgender dude who was he's a dude by biology, but he changed to a woman, and he put on this app, like it's supposed to identify what gender you are by your picture. And he dressed in his makeup and did his hair and did the whole thing so that it could do it. And every time he did it, it came back that he was a male, and he was getting mad and he was like so frustrated. I was like, dude, even AI, some of it, well, we'll see how things change. But as of right now, the AI is smart enough to tell you what you are instead of what's happening in the world right now. It's crazy.
Right. Okay, so let me go back to that wheel. So the wheel will say within the center of it, in the center of the wheel, it will say, this is the center of privilege. Privilege is written in big words. And that's going to say that the most privileged is the white, Christian, cisgendered, educated male. On the outside, it says transphobia, homophobia, everything else is all the way around the outside. So the wheel will say that male, straight, middle-aged, Western, able-bodied, post-secondary, European, urban, cis man, citizen, high, settler, English or French heritage, married, white, and Christian. That is the place of power.
Wow.
Then on the outside, it will talk about the people least likely to be in places of power. So that would be a non-Christian. Race says, what does that even say? Radicalized, marital status, widowed, divorced, single. So anybody other than married, right? These are all the levels of oppression. And then around the outside, it says homophobia, sexism, racism, colonialism, classism, xenophobia, gender, transphobia. Remember that gender. We're talking about ethnic studies.
It should have nothing to do with biology.
We're talking about gender and climate change throughout this book.
So many agendas.
The goal is flat out. But in the last chapter of this book, so then what happens, you start off with this understanding racism. And by the last chapter, it's how do you apply what you've learned? i.e., how do you become an activist? Wow. We've got huge spread outs of Black Lives Matter, huge spread outs of climate activism. Oh, and in the first chapter, there's a page on with a conservative mother. And this is in Loudoun County, Virginia, where the transgender stuff was going on, and a girl was raped by a boy in a dress. So
in the bathroom, right?
In the bathroom, right? Okay. And so this mother is she's yelling. And what it says is conservative parents often act like this. This is no different than in the 19. This is the only choice that your children get. Sorry, I'm getting a little heated here, but this is the only choice your children get is to read this. There's nothing saying how BLM still stays in the middle of the street and stops cars from going. It only says that conservative parents remove their kids so they didn't have to integrate in the 60s.
Wow.
That's what they're teaching our children. And then
one-sided.
Then it's very one-sided. And then after that, you go into each culture. And there's no focus on joy, no focus on success, no, Jesse Owens in the Olympics, nothing. It's only from a lens of you've been oppressed, you've been colonized. Then you take that colonization and you start asking the kids, what should happen to people who've been colonized? How can we work to give them their land back? So the end game here, my friends, is to completely dismantle our country. It is to give Texas back to Mexico, to give everyone who demands, because and this is the stupid stuff. So these kids think that
reparations for
right.
past generations of like, it's just, yeah.
But it's more than that, because the kids are so ignorant that they believe every one of them. And I don't mean that in terms of kids are stupid. I mean ignorant as in lack of knowledge.
Well, lack of knowledge, lack of reasoning skills.
Yes.
And the entire education system completely stays away from critical thinking.
Yes.
So that they can't form opinions. So they can't have an unbiased study of anything.
Yes.
To find out what is the correct solution. Everything is completely piled onto them in this wedge of, this is our new theology.
And there's no like, hey, let's look at both sides. It's always just, here's the one side, and this is the only side, and this is the truth, and you're going to take it whether you like it or not.
Yes. And they're supposed to evaluate how the kids are processing this. Like I said, every couple of pages. And my question is does that mean the kids are supposed to write it down? Because our kids aren't writing. So are they supposed to write it down, or are they going to have a discussion, which looks an awful lot like a struggle session?
Wow.
We're really, really harming our children. And that's a very brief overview. If anyone wants more information, because I know our time is limited and we want to watch the video, but if anyone wants more information, I go over this page by page on my channel, just trying to expose it until they figure out who's doing it and come after me.
We'll put a link to your channel in the description,
Sure.
Carrie, so that people have access to that. But
okay,
just tell us what it is right now so that they can hear it.
Sure. It's Carib Marcel, Be Not Afraid.
Carib, C-A-R-O-B.
Marcel,
M-A-R.
C-E-L-L-E.
Got it.
Yeah.
Be Not Afraid.
Yes.
Yeah. I've watched several of your videos. I was actually on. You have had me on your podcast talking about fatherhood and other things. So there's definitely some awesome we've had some interactions back and forth. So that's awesome. You've got a great, we're going to show a video here in a minute when Carrie's ready for it. There's a documentary that's being put out. It's going to go out on January tomorrow, right?
Yeah, it starts tomorrow. It starts tomorrow. And then if you're in Utah, come to Lehigh's on Saturday.
So this is when you're listening to this, it will have been the previous Saturday, but be watchful for this, because the name of the documentary is Beneath Sheep's Clothing, and that, as we know, for those of you who have followed the New Testament and know anything about that, that's a definite reference to wolves in sheep's clothing, and the wolves that are out there praying to destroy our freedoms, to destroy liberty. And for those who also know and understand the New Testament and the Bible and Christianity, will know that the spirit, where there is the spirit of liberty, there is the spirit of Christ. And so Christ and Christianity and liberty are very hand in hand. You really can't have one without the other. And so this attack on religion and families is real. And you may not see it like right away in your face, because you might be in a situation where it's not in your face right now. You might and some of you might be fighting it right now and looking for resources. Go to Carrie's site, go to her, her YouTube channel, check it out. Make sure that you follow her as well, because she's got some great resources for parents. In fact, I'm in her several, I don't know how many Facebook groups you have, but I know I'm in one or two of them that you're promoting for helping parents understand what to do and how to protect their families and their kids, and really liberty and freedom in our whole country. So if you're, I just don't want to diminish this, because you may not think that it's like, there's so many things to fight. That's the problem, is that they kind of give us so many fronts. They attack us they attack us from so many different ways that we're almost like, well, I can't divert resources to that one because I'm already totally tapped out over here. And so it's important to be aware and stay aware and build resilience. And it's your responsibility as a prepper, as a father, as a mother, to protect your family and prepare them for the world and protect them from the world. And that's what we brought Carrie on to be able to kind of share some of the things that are happening in not just in our state of Utah where she is and we are, but all throughout the country. This is not something that's specific to even our country, Frank, of America. This is happening all over the world, and there's just a lot. I've recently I've had a lot of people or a lot of things that I've seen where different organizations are coming into schools, different parents are telling, talking about what books they're seeing in different libraries, in their school libraries. It's just not, it really is an all-out attack, right, Carrie? Is that true?
Oh no, it absolutely is. And the sad thing is that we are so sleepy. It's like the fairy tale Sleeping Beauty when the prince walks through the town and everyone's asleep. Everyone thinks all is well in Zion, to be honest. And so there is a pushback, but it's so small.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a huge group of people that are just pulling their kids from school, which is one solution, right?
Yeah.
But it's not the whole solution. And
right.
We've done that ourselves because we saw how things were going. We're in Utah, and we saw how things were going in Davis County. And one of the teachers here was reprimanded for teaching Black history during Black History Month, and for not being Black. She's not allowed to teach it.
Wow.
And I was like, we can't teach true history,
right?
If it didn't happen to us. Well, none of us were alive then in that school.
Right.
So how are we not allowed? So does that mean we can't talk about the Holocaust because none of us were alive then? Does that mean we can't talk about, the entire Roman Empire? Because that's the ridiculousness of where things have gone and where they're continuing to go. And now you throw in DEI and this and critical race theory, and they're peddling garbage and force feeding it to our children. And then the children come home and we have a chance to try to fix it at home. But if we don't fight it at the school level or pull the kids out of the school, it's going to be too late.
Right. That's interesting. Yesterday, a parent sent me something that was done, I believe, in Davis County, and it's called the Government of Utah. The Government of Utah is like a big family. The state is grown up, and the people who live in it in the Utah are like the little kids. Just like the family, the state takes care of things for the people who live here. The state has a governor who is like a mom or a dad. I won't go into the rest of it, but that's I'm happy to share it with you. It's
very Hillary Clinton slang speech.
Another thing, another video. I think I don't know if it was I don't know. It was on. It was a reel that I was watching. David Harris Jr. is a great person to follow. He has some great stuff on there on Instagram if you want to follow somebody. But I don't think it was him. It might have been. But it was this transition of this young woman, and she was this beautiful young woman, looked conservative. She was it showed her like junior high and then high school, and then it showed a picture of her in college after her first year. Like she said, she graduated looking like this, and then it showed after her first year of college, and then it had a picture of her with like purple hair and 14 nose rings and eye rings and just like this absolutely ridiculously low cut shirt and this short skirt and like all these fishnets and she's like, and I was like, whoa, how did this? That's what colleges and universities and colleges are really hitting this stuff hard. But now they're trying to get it back into grade schools and junior highs and high schools, as you're telling us, Carrie. And so, I mean, imagine that poor, if at least that girl had a chance through high school to get a little bit of foundation, but then that college university experience just totally turned her from.
They're doing it intentionally. So BYU had a teacher who the requirement for the class, and I do have the texts, but the requirement for the class was that you had to gender bend. So boys are supposed to wear dresses for a couple of days. They're also supposed to, this is at BYU, they're also supposed to attend a porn support group. They had some other options, but that was one of the options.
Wow.
So, yeah, it was pretty, it's pretty shocking. It is coming from all sides. You must guide your kids. And some people have said, why would you call your page Be Not Afraid when you say all of these fearful things? And my point is that when you have knowledge, you have options. So you have to know what's going on. You can't put your head in the sand and then wonder why in the world your child is a mess.
Yeah.
Yep.
So, yeah.
Well, we have about 10 minutes or so. Let's watch this video, and then we'll have a few minutes to talk about it after that. Is that okay?
Perfect.
All right, so we're going to watch this video. It's called it's the trailer for the documentary that you're actually in, right, Carrie?
I am, yes.
Yeah, you're one of the actresses, or not actresses, but you're one of the people in this sharing the story. It's called Beneath Sheep's Clothing, official teaser trailer teaser, and this is on YouTube, so you can find it if you want to watch it and share it with your friends as well. I'll put a link in the description below as well. But let's watch this. It's 4 minutes, worth the watch. So stay in your seats and watch to the end with us, and we'll share some of our thoughts and feelings afterwards.
So here's the thing about communism. When it comes knocking at your door, it doesn't say, "Hi, I'm here to impoverish, enslave, and murder you." It says, "I'm here to liberate you from oppression."
I thought of myself as a happy kid. I was going to school. I was playing. And I had no idea that I was being brainwashed.
Communism is like an international cancer. It must spread to survive. And America was the major impediment to the spread of this disease. They knew right from the start that America could not be taken from the outside. It had to be taken from the inside.
They infiltrated America's media and education.
He said the ultimate objective of having government school was to destroy Christianity. Those were his words.
But unfortunately, we have utterly red-washed education, so we don't know what creeping communism looks like.
I don't like the idea of teaching children that they're victims.
So we're undermining the family unit by saying that it's destructive to have any sort of heteronormative society.
Just affirm it, or else we're going to take your kids away.
And they say, well, no, that's not communism. It's Democrat socialism. It's just dog do. Put sprinkles on top of it. It's the same thing.
It was probably the most extreme version of communism. They separated children from their parents. If you ever want to take over a country, you indoctrinate the children. I just can't sit here and do nothing. This is the hill I'm going to die on.
They say that that's why we will take you to prison, because you're teaching your children about God and you don't follow our indoctrination.
Just like in the Soviet Union, in America, we have seen heavy attacks on fringe Christian groups.
And I hate to use that phrase, the final solution, because that's what Hitler's Germany used for justify the killing of all the Jews.
But that's what they called it.
Overall, there were 76 deaths of men, women, and children.
And the real target is mainstream Christianity. But by attacking the fringes, you intimidate everybody else.
The Soviets infiltrated the mainstream churches.
All their the top clergy, yes, they are working for the government. And even some of them is appointed by the government.
So the KGB agents would go into this church and then rise up.
That's right. All of them is infiltrated.
Similarly, America's churches have been infiltrated.
So the American communists started infiltrating the churches right from the start.
There are ravening wolves in sheep's clothing all over the place. They agree with Marx. So religion is the opiate of the masses, and the masses are going to need some opium because they're going to get put through some unpleasant experiences. Their liberty is going to be taken away from them.
What can we do? Get involved, do what you can. There is no time for complacency.
We're only going to be saved by telling the truth. Telling the truth takes courage. Courage is proof of faith.
I don't belong here.
Wow.
Right?
So my whole life, my grandparents have been really big into like the John Birch Society and understanding what's going on in the world, understanding our rights and liberties and freedoms. Taught my mom, right? So it came down to us. So I've grown up knowing that Christianity is always going to be under attack, right? That God's always going to be under attack. And the whole purpose behind everything they're trying to do is to destroy God and become God of this world. And we have to fight that.
Yes.
You can't just cower. You can't just put your hands up and say, you know, I'm going to deal with my own things and ignore you guys, because then that gives them the freedom to keep moving. And I don't know what the answer is for what we need to do, but we need to keep at least talking about it and informing other people and educating. So you guys, those of you listening, you know, that you see these things, you hear these things, it's time to start doing something about it. And share it with your friends, share it with your family, get them aware so that we can push back.
Yep. Awareness brings change, and we aren't going to change what's happening unless we're aware of what's happening. And I think that's a big part of your show, Carrie, is that I keep calling you Carol because you go by different names.
I know.
Your show is that bringing awareness, and that's how you aren't afraid, is when you know what's going on, you can attack. When you see the problem for the fullness in its fullness, or as much as you can see, you can actually have a hope to find a solution.
Yes.
If you put your head in the ground and don't know what the real problem is, you're going to have a hard time finding a solution. And so I think it's so important. I mean, there were several scenes. You guys, there were some very visual aspects to that doesn't make sense if you were just listening. So try to go find it on YouTube and watch that. And also, go to our site, our YouTube channel, and watch it. And make sure that you take a chance to watch some of the, because the impact of some of the visuals were actually really powerful.
It will be available to stream at the end of the month. So if this comes out next week, then it'll be available to stream after that. It will have a price to it because, they're trying to get it to as many people as possible. One thing that I just want to leave you with is that this isn't just for adults. Our young people need to understand when they walk in the classroom and they recognize, oh, that's what they're doing. They have to be able to know. And that's a really hard thing, but they know. Mm-hmm. I mean, we have stuffed animal rooms for our junior high and high schoolers. They know something, not joking. We have safe spaces right here in our own county for, so they know something's wrong. They don't buy into that. They're like, why are they trying to turn us into children, like little children?
Mm-hmm.
So you got to say, well, this is why, because the more infantilized you are, the less likely you are to be informed enough to know how to stand up against this. So that's what I do. And that's what I'm doing in that video is I'm teaching a class of 15-year-olds.
Good for you.
So
yes,
what can we do?
So I understand also you've been involved for years, but tell us more about what you're doing in the upcoming year. So especially people in Utah can help rally around what you're doing.
Sure.
But also what people can do elsewhere to copy what you're doing and maybe even reach out to you as well.
Sure. Okay. Well, first off, I just put my name in and I will be running for District 13 in Utah's state school board.
Nice.
So that's the first thing that I'm doing. And I think that it is important that we get the elitists off the board and we start recognizing that families have a right to protect their children and to raise them the way they feel fit. Our schools, the overreach is way too much. And so that's why I'm running. Secondly is I try to make my videos in a way that that teenagers will be interested in them as well. A lot of times I try to put visually interesting, especially if I'm speaking to people who've escaped communism, which I'll be doing a whole lot more of this year.
Good.
One of the people in the video is Mom Army, and she's talking about Pol Pot in Cambodia and what happened there. So the thing is that you just have to talk to your children. You have to let them know and you have to pull them in and you have to say, I hate that this is your world. I absolutely hate that this is your world, but we're going to make the best of it so that you will be a thriver.
That's key.
That's awesome.
Like, you've got to help them know how they can rise above it and be strong against it.
Yes.
Otherwise, when it does hit them in the face, they're going to just fall down and not know what to do. They're going to freeze instead of fight.
Right. Right. Which I think is the goal. But, you know, there's a lot of people that behind closed doors, and it's the same thing that happened in communism. Behind closed doors, they would say yes and do everything that they were supposed to. And at night, families would take their children down into the basement and they would have conversations with them and they would tell them the truth and they would say, hang on to the truth. The biggest thing that anybody should do is, if you're only reading your scriptures on a phone, make sure you have hard copy of scriptures. Because coming for your faith, changing your faith through social and emotional learning is a thing. Changing your faith through ethnic studies is a thing. The progressivism is not what people think. It doesn't mean that we're moving forward towards a Star Trek generation. Progressivism looks an awful lot like repeated history. Yeah.
So you're absolutely right, Carrie. There's so much that we need to do. And we talk about it on our show quite a bit, where, you know, don't trust that everything online is going to stay online. Because even if we have let's just pretend that, you know, if you've listened to anybody who has any sense or reason, you'll know that there's an attack. Our government is doing things that they're really overreaching and overstepping. The three-letter agencies are ridiculously overstepping. The fact that most of our Congress was built on the fact that regular people could represent the people from where they live in their country, in their area, and then they could have the local representation. People could be voted in that could represent them. That was what it was built on, with that representative democracy, or a democratic republic. But now I hear so many different Congress people talking, the ones that are awake, that are saying, look, we can't really make a bunch of decisions because everything is now catering to these experts in these three-letter agencies. And what is a three-letter agency other than the DOE, the Department of Education? And that's another one of these ways that the government and other entities like them are trying to fundamentally change the whole thing. And you know how the guy in that video said that the only way to take out America is not by coming at us with a full frontal attack. That would be a suicide mission, because our army, our military is so strong. However, if we can weaken our society, if we can teach the children, and what was that KGB? There was a KGB guy that was like in the 50s.
Yuri Bezmenov.
Yeah, he came in. He says the fastest, most easiest way to control you is to do it by educating and infiltrating your children, and generation after generation, just weakening them to the point where they're going to actually welcome communism. They'll welcome Marxism, because they've just been dumbed down and watered down and reasoned. It's been reasoned on them so much that they just accept it as the norm, as, yes, this is what's supposed to happen. And then we're marched off before we know it into the camps. And like, wait a minute, how did we get here? One step at a time, 1 degree at a time, we were cooked in the boiling frog, analogy. And so,
well, I think there's hope to that, though, because while the millennial crowd is falling for this pretty hard, the crowd after them, a lot of Gen Z is just not buying it.
Good.
So I don't know how that plays out, but there's a lot of young people, I'm talking mid-range teenagers, who see what's going on.
Yeah, I've heard a lot. I've seen a lot. I have a friend that receives videos, and he's been on our show too, Eric Mutzos, and he's one of my friends, and he receives videos from students that are recording some of the teachers and some of the things that they're seeing in the classrooms. And so good for them. If you're a young person listening to this and you see what's going on, you can have a great voice to help and be a good example to those that are around you. I talk to my son a lot, he's a junior in high school right now. And I tell him, we actually had a conversation last night about, as a person of influence, he's a leader. He needs to stand up for the right things and be an example of good. And, there's a wonderful discussion about Christianity and being the salt of the earth. And one of the ways that we can become the salt of the earth is not by separating ourselves although there is some definite need from time to time to separate ourselves, but to be the influence in the, to be that influence in the world. Be not don't be of the world, but be in the world, and recognize that, hey, we're here to show the example. We're here to bring our testimony on our strength and change them, not have them change us as Christians, as conservatives, as people of good moral high values. That's my opinion. That's my thought, and that's how I run my life. And I know that you, Gary, have a similar mentality. Thank you. Any last minute thoughts, Gary? Just thank you so much for coming on. First of all, I think it's awesome that what you're doing, and I think that the fight needs to be. We need good men and women to stand up and draw the line and push back. And I think you're a great example of that.
Thank you. Yeah, my last minute thought is, I was in the grocery store and a young woman, she assumed correctly that I was a teacher, and she had said something, and I use every opportunity. If somebody opens up a door, I use the opportunity to talk back to talk with them. And she said, okay, well, the fact is that we know something's going wrong. We know there's something. Us kids, like they're making us less unified than we've ever been. And she said, but here's my question. When are the grown-ups going to stand up for us?
Oh, wow.
And that is something, when people ask me, why are you running or anything else? That's why. Because that one young woman in the store said, when are they going to stand for us? Yep. And it's not the first or last person, So
that said that. Sure. Absolutely.
Well, Gary, I appreciate it.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Gary, for being on the show. You've been listening to Prepper Talk Radio, radio for the ready-minded, and we've in this episode we've hopefully given you some ideas that you can do and use to prepare your family and prepare your children for what's coming and what's happening and what the enemy in many ways is doing. They're not going to stop, and we can't just put our heads in the sand and hope that they go away, because they won't. That's the problem, is that you and I, conservative Christians, we just want to live our life, do our thing. And there's a saying that I really I've heard a couple times. It's like, I think it says, they better beware when the people who want to be left alone get involved. And I'm one of those guys that, let's just leave me alone. Let me live my life. Let me mind my own business. I'll let you mind your own business. But the minute you start getting your business up in my business, we're going to start having a problem. I think it's getting to that point. So again, thank you guys for listening. Check out our website, preppertalkradio.com. Check out our free resources. Check out the affiliate links in the description below. Thank you for listening. Have a fantastic day, and we'll see you on the next episode.
Great. Thank you so much.